Hey all, Kurt Sassaway from TGT Media at Fan Expo Canada 2013. We're joined today at the Kill Shakespeare booth by Conor McCreery. How you doing today, Conor?
I'm really well. Thanks very much for coming and chatting with us.
Oh, of course. I always got to stop by and see you guys at least once for a couple of years.
It's true, and eventually, if you do that enough, we will release the loved ones of yours that we have in the basement.
Why? Why'd you bring that up now?
Why?
You know, Kill Shakespeare, obviously, Anthony really went into the fact that, you got some great new books coming out here. You got other things coming down the pipe with Kill Shakespeare, which is amazing to hear and see. Why do you keep doing Kill Shakespeare? What drives you to keep doing it?
The smart-ass answer is nobody's paying us to do anything different. No, I mean, it's like, I love world building. And I mean, the Kill Shakespeare, and I'm a nerdy Dragonlance, I loved like the Belgrid. I love David Eddings. Like I loved all that fantasy adventure stuff. I love Game of Thrones now, and so there's something really satisfying of beginning to build your own fantasy world. And one of the cool things for me about Kill Shakespeare is it's very much a sword and sorcery fantasy setting. I mean, there are magic, there are creatures, there are all these things, but at the same token, I think it's kind of atypical, and it doesn't have to follow a lot of the the rules of the there is no magic sword the same way, and there are gods, but everybody in our world knows that William Shakespeare is also a man, so that's something we get to play with in our world. So I find it really satisfying, and the characters are great. I mean, you can never run out of, at least I don't think you can run out of interesting ways to just kind of mess around with Shakespeare's creations. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, I'm certainly not tired of it.
Awesome. Everyone usually has one or two people that kind of inspire them on their path to what they're doing now. Who are some for you?
Wow, that's a good question. It's funny because I don't even know who put this together, but I love The Secret of Nim when I was growing up. That was something that really stuck with me. And it really, it was one of those shows that in movies that scares the crap out of you as a little kid. But I really loved it, and I just remember how, I don't know, there's so much heart in that movie. So that was one that really was with me. And I guess someone like David Eddings, is a fantastic, I really loved that stuff growing up so much. I don't know, it's funny. I can't say there was one person where it's oh man, I want to have that career. Because I used to create stuff when I was younger, but I actually kind of went away from writing and acting and doing any of that for about 10 years. So it wasn't like there was that one person who drove me forward, but that's I'll have to think about that even more. You've asked a good question. The wheels are turning.
Well, here's another one. Do you consider yourself successful?
Yes and no. I mean, I guess one part is like a lot of people, you can get really hard on yourself and, why haven't we done this? But yeah, I consider myself successful because there are people who will walk up to a booth and say, I really like your book. And and that's really cool. I think that's the first time that happened. I remember Anthony and I were at a show, and this woman came up and she was kind of shaking, and we didn't really know what was going on. And she was shaking because she was so excited to meet us, which really weirded us out. We were like, that was really weird. Why is she so excited to meet us? And then it just kind of hit us, we made something that she really liked. And so yeah, I think I'll carry that moment with me forever. That's really cool. And so yeah, in that respect, I definitely think I'm successful. I would love to have even more success. But if this is the end of the career for me, I'll be able to go down and say, yeah, I helped create a pretty cool comic book.
Well, then what is success to you then, personally?
Hordes and scads of money, an army of the undead willing to do your every bidding, and a giant kosher pickle, because I like kosher pickles. I don't know. I guess ultimate success probably in any sort of creative industry, it's probably getting to walk into the money makers and the decision makers and be able to walk into them on some level of even terms so that you can say, this is something I'm passionate about, and that they trust you to largely develop it the way you want. That's somebody like, J.J. Abrams. There's a few names where you're yeah, all their work feels really personal, and that when there was a big fight, they got their way enough that their ideas, Del Toro is another example of a guy who I think his stuff is very him. I think that's probably, in the creative world, that's probably the ultimate success, is to be able to walk in and say, yeah, this is my vision, and for them to largely trust that you're not going to screw it up.
How do you deal with your failures?
I guess, honestly, the hardest thing for me is defining failures. It's so easy to look at something and be like, shit, like that's not good. I know Anthony sometimes gets frustrated because I can really easily focus on what could have been better. I think that's good in some ways. I mean, I think it drives you to be better. I mean, at the same token, I can be super pissed off, but I'm also proud of what I've done. I really believe the work we've done is good work. I don't think Kill Shakespeare is, I don't think we're a grade A title yet. I don't know if we're that, like we're talking about, and I mean, by grade A titles, I'm talking about like The Watchmen, The Fables, like the really best titles. I personally don't feel we're at that level yet, but I don't think it's insulting for our book to be mentioned in the same general conversation as those books. So from that perspective, we succeeded. But yeah, I guess, I don't know, you just have to walk away for a little bit. I love doing interviews and I love getting criticism because a lot of times you get really good criticism. I've been really pleasantly surprised how in the comics world, you get really good criticism of your work. And I definitely feel I've learned a lot from fans, from reading what they take from our book. And so I guess in that sense, yeah, I mean, I guess did I fail on a level? Did we fail on a level? Maybe, but the opportunity to succeed is right around the corner. Which is the great thing about comics because it's serialized.
The younger generation are coming through. Obviously, like that person that saw you and you really inspired them from your work, obviously. But they go home, they look at your work. How can they become inspiring themselves?
I think you just, two things. I mean, one, you got to do the work. The only way you can inspire people with your work is you've got to do your work. And I think that's kind of going back to what you said before is you have to be comfortable failing and you have to be able to sort of look at your failures and put them in a little box or put them aside and keep making work. And the other thing I think is be nice. And one of the nicest things in comics is everybody you meet in the industry is really, really nice. Like Mike Carey actually is somebody, going back to one of your earliest questions, that's someone that I really think is a great comics creator. And meeting Mike Carey, he's the nicest guy. I'm working on a project with another friend of mine, and he's like, hey, when it gets to a certain point, if you want to show it to me, I'd be happy to give you some feedback. I think that's how you become inspiring, is you help other people try to do inspiring work. Don't be a dick. It's generally a good rule of thumb.
Will Wheaton, gotta love it.
And there's very few in comics.
Very true, very true. And is there anything else you want to add to this that we might not have asked you?
I guess I got the inspirational side of the interview. Always eat your vegetables. Read your Shakespeare. Don't pick on your sister, or just enough so that she kind of gets like snarky and can take care of herself in a fight, but doesn't become mean. Those would be my piece of advice.
I'll fit that into the documentary somehow. Thanks so much, Conor. Really appreciate it, and hope you have a great rest of your convention here.
Yeah, thanks very much.